I'm Joe Kane.
I'm Dan Kane.
I'm Sal Conca.
And this is the Imperfect Podcast.
Don't forget to go to hecklerkane.com and sign up to be an Imperfect Podcast Insider.
To the bumper. This week's guest is your humble host, Alex Ferrari, known for his filmmaking blog and podcast, Indie Film Hustle. With his 20 years of experience in the industry, Alex dishes the straight line on making it in the film business. He shared his experiences with us as a filmmaker, making the rounds at every film festival imaginable, and why film festivals may or may not be a good idea for filmmakers. This year he puts his money where his mouth is and shot the feature film This Is Meg, starring Jill-Michelle Melean, who has also co-wrote the film with Alex. You won't want to miss this exclusive interview. Let's say hello to Alex.
Alex Ferrari, welcome to the Imperfect Podcast. How are you doing today?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for dialing in all the ways from the West Coast. I know you're originally an East Coast guy, though, right? Where were your original roots?
I was born in Miami, raised in New York, Queens, Jamaica, Queens. Then went back down to Miami when I was 10 and was trapped there until 10 years ago, where I escaped and came to LA.
I like how you say trapped. I mean,
well, if you look, I love all my Florida friends. I have a lot of Florida friends down there, but you know, the film industry is very tough down there. Mm-hmm. And I made a living as an editor in South Florida, which you can't even comprehend now. Because at the time I didn't. At the time, I was like, "Oh, this is great," but when you get to LA, you're going, "Oh, so this is what it's like." Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a whole other level. So when I got here, it was just like, "Oh, I escaped. Thank God."
Cool. Well, I have some roots in Miami. I actually went to UM. I was a Hurricane.
Oh, were you? Very cool.
Yeah,
very
cool.
My first job was right down the street from UM.
Oh, really?
I was a tape dubber, and I edited on a Sony 2 3/4-inch decks. Editing together demo reels for I know I said 3/4 inch and you guys like
well, we're all musicians and we deal with those. We used to deal with those old the reel to reels and 1-inch ones and the 3/4-inch ones and it's beautiful.
I went to Full Sail. So I actually went through the audio program, unfortunately, because I can't stand audio, because I need visuals. So I hated the classes, but I cut tape. Signal flow. Can I curse? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Having to patch everything into the board and stuff, that was before, digital.
Yeah.
It was all still hardcore. So yeah, I feel you.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I mean, for our audience, I'm sure a lot of them listening already know who you are, so we don't have to give too much background on you, but I do want to talk about Indie Film Hustle and just the phenomenon, I'm going to use the word, phenomenon that it has become. I mean, the hashtag, the tribe, all these people that have reached out to you, the filmmakers that you've been inspiring for many years now, how do you make that leap to really being an entrepreneur and starting Indie Film Hustle? Because it's a very entrepreneurial type thing to do, which a lot of filmmakers don't get the business side of things. So I'm curious how you really came to that and started Indie Film Hustle and where it came from.
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I mean, I was hustling, doing garage sales when I was 10. I was the only 10-year-old walking around with a wad of cash because I was, when I say wad of cash, meaning like $100, but $100 for a 10, 12, 13-year-old is a lot.
I still don't carry $100 in my wallet, so.
Exactly. So I've always hustled ever since I was a kid. I was just born with that inside of me. So I've always figured out the film business side of the film industry, with my first film, Broken, and being able to sell that and make money with that. So I've always been able to figure that out. My wife's mom, my mother-in-law, says, "I know you'll never starve," because Alex could sell anything to anybody, and I just hustle all the time. And with Indie Film Hustle, I was looking to start an online business, and it took me a year of watching every video I can get my hand on, listening to every podcast, reading every book, and I really studied the business of an online business, creating content, the whole SEO, the whole ball of wax. So I studied that for a year before I ever launched anything. That's generally the way I work. I work on, I kind of like hunker down. I'm like Rocky. I'm in Rocky 3. I'm inside the basement with Apollo. That's where I'm at.
Nice.
And I stay there for a long time. But when I come out swinging and really hard. So that's what I did with Indie Film Hustle. Like I showed up with Indie Film Hustle and bursted out very quickly. Within a month, I was getting a lot of traffic to my site, which is unheard of for a blog. And by the way, I had been out of the film industry really for almost 3 years selling my olive oil, which I don't want to get into.
We won't talk about that. We'll leave that for the interview with Rob.
Exactly. But so I really had no leverage. I had people people who were either fans of mine from Broken's day. It was just really disconnected. So I literally came out from scratch. So coming out of the gate like that was eye-opening to me. I was like, wow, this actually is resonating. Then I started the podcast, and then within 2 months, the podcast was the #1 filmmaking podcast on iTunes. And I was like, wow, what the hell is happening here? So I guess what I was doing with Indie Film Hustle at the time was resonating with filmmakers out there because I was telling people the truth. And that's what I wanted to do, kind of like when I started, surveying the field of podcasts and websites and stuff. There's nice good content out there and there's a lot of good people out there, but I didn't see anybody with my flavor. I didn't see anybody with my street cred, a guy who's been in the business for 20 odd years, has gone through a lot of shit, has seen a lot of stuff. And I didn't hear anybody really telling the truth, meaning like, I'm going to tell you how it really is, and I'll tell you how it really is. And I'll show you the dream and I'll show you how to get to that dream, but don't be stupid about it. Don't finance your house. Don't refinance your house to go make your first independent film and you've never directed it before. Don't be an idiot.
Joe.
My wife is still mad at me.
If anybody in the room has done that, I apologize.
No.
It's a joke.
It's a joke.
Okay, but that happens, and I couldn't stand seeing filmmakers who are my people constantly get beat up by the business. And being in post-production for so long and delivering over 50 feature films over the course of my career, I was front row to see what happened to all these filmmakers. So I would see Sundance winners and South by Southwest winners and Oscar winners even, what happened to their careers and what happened to their films and what they do. So I really got a chance to see all that over the course of my career so far. So I was like, I've got a really unique perspective. So I'm like, let me put that perspective out there. And it just kind of took off after that. And it's been growing and growing ever since. The business side of it was simple. Once I understood the business side of the website and the podcast, that's the easy part. The hard part is creating good content and being of value to your audience. So, one of the reasons you guys reached out to me to be on this show is because you found some value in what I do over the course of the time you've listened to me or read stuff that I've done or anything. So providing that value is my #1 priority in whatever arena that is, whether it be YouTube, whether it be the podcast, or whether it be articles or blogs. Any place I put my name or my effort, I have to provide some value. And that's another thing I saw a lot of these sites doing. They were just trying to rip off filmmakers again. And I'm like, dude, I've been ripped off. You've been ripped off. If you went to film school, you were ripped off. I mean, filmmakers are the most cynical, most abused artist, I think, in the genre of art. Even more so than musicians and again, I'm being very, you guys are musicians as I see a bunch of guitars hanging in the background. Yeah. Filmmakers, with musicians, the cost of a guitar does not outweigh the cost of making a film. You're talking to tens of thousands of dollars sometimes. So I think filmmakers just get beat up so much that I got tired of seeing them all get ripped off and get beat up all the time. So I was like, you know what, let me provide some value. Let me, maybe create some courses to show them the right way of doing things, at least from my perspective, and promote courses that I feel that do good for you and show you things like we were talking about before the show, the editing, you're trailer editing guy, Chris, great, amazing course. But it provides amazing value to whoever wants to look into it. So that's what I try to do with Indie Film Hustle. And I give away probably, as you guys know, 95% of my content is free. I don't charge for a podcast. I don't charge for all the articles and I give away a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I charge for a little bit of it. So I can survive and I can grow as an entity. But that's what I try to do, where a lot of other sites might focus more on making a lot of money and screwing the filmmaker. I try to help the filmmaker and make some money along the way.
Sure. And we know how grueling your schedule is. I mean, when you say indie film hustle, we know what the hustle is like for you, right? I mean, it's 5 podcasts, a podcast a day, right? Plus the blog.
I do 2 podcasts. I do 2 podcasts a week.
Okay.
Sometimes 3. And then I do at least a piece of content, original content a day,
Yep.
if not more. And sometimes I'm now stopping myself from creating content because I just don't have it. I promise you right now, if you look on the back end of Indie Film Hustle, I literally have 150 articles waiting.
Wow.
Just sitting there, just waiting for me to publish them. Wow. And I've got probably 50 or 100 videos easily waiting. I just can't process it all so much.
And the question is, where do you find the time?
There's a lot of time in the day. A lot of people ask me that question. There's a lot of time in the day. And if you're good at what you do, at least putting this stuff out. I've been doing Indie Film Hustle has only been around for 2 years. Mm-hmm. That's it. So during those 2 years, I've learned a lot about how to process. So I can knock out a podcast in an hour to record it, an hour to maybe do editing and intro, outro. And I could basically put a podcast together in 2.5 hours total, including everything. And that's generally the way I do it. So it's not a lot of time. It is, but it's not. But it took me a while to get there. I mean, I wake up sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'll go to bed I always stop around 6:30. If I didn't have my family, the site would probably be bigger. But my
Damn.
family.
But you know what? In this community, if you don't have your family, you don't have your people around you, you lose your sanity.
Yeah, absolutely. In the business in general. I remember what it was like when I was doing Broken in 2005. I literally sat on the computer for 10 to 12 hours a day just promoting things, all for 6-7 months straight, and I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. So, I just sat there and that's all I did. I mean, that's why back then you could not go anywhere online, any message board without seeing a trailer from that film. And it still resonates today. I'm still selling DVDs and Broken stuff back. That's 12 years ago now. Yeah. So, but yeah, without the family, man, we're all the same vintage. So, as you get older, certain priorities change. But even then I still put in about 10 to 12 hours a day, weekdays. Weekends, I generally don't work. Occasionally I'll do something, but that's family time. So believe it or not, a lot of people think I'm just a workaholic. I'm not. I just work a lot, and I'm a very efficient when I work. I feel like I'm a slacker, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I could do better. I could do more, but that's any artist.
Most entrepreneurs, most artists all feel like we're slackers and we haven't done enough for the day. And, but
you know what, when I call it quits after editing for, 8 hours and I'm sitting there with my eyes glued to the computer monitor and then all of a sudden I go, oh, I just can't get that last thing done. And what a waste of a day.
I feel like that all the time. I'm like, I only got 3 blogs done today, post today, and a podcast. God damn it. It's like, it's just not enough. It's just not enough.
Exactly. Well, you had your success with Broken very early on in terms of you went to many film festivals with it, and then it parlayed into selling 5,000 DVDs about the making of Broken and all that stuff. What was the film festival experience like for you, and how do you feel about film festivals today for filmmakers?
It's kind of a double-edged sword. I think film festival, all of our projects that I've done I've been probably 500-600 film festivals. So I've done the gambit. I mean, I've been to every festival you can imagine. I've been to Sundance, not as a member or filmmaker, but been to Sundance probably 6-7 times. I get the whole experience. If you've never gone through the experience, it's magical. I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure you guys have done some festivals in your day.
We've done festivals, not Sundance.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. But the first time you go to a festival and you project your movie, it is like, it's magic. It's like the most amazing thing ever. But when you do that 500 times and you spend a lot of money going through that process, you kind of realize what it's worth. you know. And so to answer your first question, Broken, I went to a lot of festivals with Broken, made a lot of great friends, made a lot of good connections. It parlayed me into going up to Toronto, like producers flying me up to Toronto, and I met Roger Ebert there, and there was a lot of wonderful experiences with the festival circuit. And then I've produced some movies, got other movies in, and just kept going to festivals and stuff. Festivals are wonderful. They're really nice, but I do have a problem with the cost. I think a lot of times festivals abuse filmmakers. They take their money for a submission and they don't call them back. They don't email them. They don't even let them know if they're in or not. Nothing like that. And I've been on both sides of that fest. You know, I did, and I don't want to keep saying course, but I did another course with Chris from Film Festival Secrets, all about film festivals from both sides, like from the festival's point of view and the filmmaker's point of view, to get the most out of that experience. And there is a positivity to it. And if you've never done it, you should definitely do it. But you got to be careful because, you know, when I did Broken, I spent $1,000 in submission fees. It's a lot of submission fees for a short film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then after I had been in 35 festivals at that point, and I had been rejected from all the great ones, and I'm like, well, should I spend any more money? Like, is the Moose Jaw International Film Festival in Wisconsin really going to do a lot for my business, for my career? So at that point in time, I decided not to submit. I went on strike. I'm not going to pay anymore.
Gotcha.
And then I came up with techniques on how to get in for free. And I did. And that film went on to be in like 150, 175 festivals over the course of the next couple of years. But I paid for very few of them afterwards. So it is a great experience. And I think you definitely, as a filmmaker, should do it. If you live in a small town, do it every year, because that's the only place you're going to connect with other filmmakers. I live in LA, so it's not as big of a deal for me. But when I was in Miami, those festivals are like gold because you can't get connections with other filmmakers like you can at festivals, and other producers and other actors and other finance people. They all do go to those festivals, so there is a lot of value to it. But just don't go hog wild over it. You know, imagine you guys, I'm sure, flown out to some festivals, right?
We've never actually flown.
We've never actually flown. We've gone in the area and we've gone within a drive. So I've actually. But we've
out.
kept it in mind that we that's, you know, the cost of a festival, what it's going to cost the festival, and then it's got to be cost effective for us to actually reach the festival. We did apply with one thing to Sundance and one thing to Cannes, but I mean, if we got that, which we didn't, that would have been worth it.
Then now you start refinancing the house.
Yeah.
At that point to go to Sundance.
Exactly.
If you've never been to Sundance, by the way, you've got, I mean, it's a magical wonderland. It really is.
We know. We've heard.
You guys should definitely, you know, I'm going again this year, and it's awesome. Like the connections you make, the people you meet. I always said the first time I went with Broken when it wasn't in the festival. I literally had just finished Broken and walked around with a laptop going, hey, you want to watch a movie on the street? This is 2005. And during that festival, it was the first time I ever been to Sundance. I always said it was like Walt Disney World, but instead of the characters, they're celebrities. So I would just literally take pictures with everybody. I got Robert Downey Jr. I got, you know,
nice.
I'm sitting
with
next,
the laptop or
no, not with the laptop, with actual photos. But you know, that was pre-Iron Man, and like I'm sitting there because we snuck into a place that only celebrities are supposed to get into. Dude, we forged badges. Nice. I mean, we did all sorts of crazy stuff. So I'm sitting there right next to me, Lawrence Bender and Larry David are having breakfast, and you know, like we're just like freaking out, you know, and then Tarantino's over there, and I'm like, what do we do? Until finally they fished us out. But we got in, and we got in multiple times. There's always little hacks.
Of course.
These days.
Well, we're branching out this year. Joe and I are going to the American film market. I'm curious what your take is on the film markets and AFM. Or will you be there this year? Will you be there this year?
I'm going this year because this is Meg's going to be there.
Okay.
And I'm actually I'm going to be hopefully interviewing the founder of AFM in the next week or two.
Gotcha.
So that's going to come out prior to AFM.
We're trying for that too. Is that Jonathan or somebody else?
Yeah, Jonathan.
Cool.
Is he blowing our interview? He's
I know,
taking our interview.
That's why
we all perked up. We're like, wait a minute.
They reached out to me.
No, very cool.
So I'm going to be talking to Jonathan. Hopefully in the next. I think next week I'm scheduled to talk to him, and then he'll be pumped out quickly after. So hopefully we can. I've been to AFM once before. I've never been upstairs. I've only been down in the lobby with the bottom feeders. But that's where everyone hangs out. I don't mean that in a bad way. Everyone hangs out there at one point or another, and a lot of deals are made down there. But I never got upstairs. So this year I'm going to be getting upstairs. And getting a pass and seeing the whole process. I got a little taste of AFM when I was at Toronto, because Toronto is a mini market. So it's very similar to AFM, not as big, but it's very similar in the way they do things. Rent out hotel rooms, people come in and you sell movies. And it's an old-fashioned way of doing it, but it is still a way of doing international sales. And we could talk about distribution and all that stuff as well. But
I'd love to.
it's still a way of it's still the way to make international sales. Will that be there in the next 20 years? I don't know. I don't know. But it's still, hey, I look at you. I have a relationship with you as a filmmaker and as a producer. I'm going to buy your movie and sell it to China, sell it to South Africa, sell it to India, and so on.
The business is all about building relationships. And if you don't build those relationships, you're kind of out of luck. You just doesn't happen.
I mean, look, it's all about relationships. I was at Sundance a couple years after the first time, and I had built up a lot of relationships. So I wasn't sneaking into parties anymore. I was actually invited, which is always a wonderful thing. So
beautiful.
And I was out front, and I walked out of this party that we were in, and out front was the winner of Project Greenlight, the third season, the guy who did the horror movie.
Okay.
And he can't get in.
Oh shit.
He can't get into the festival, to the party. And I walk out, I'm like, hey, and I forgot his name, forgive me, but I'm like, didn't you win? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I can't get in. I'm like, and I told the doorman, who's my buddy, I'm like, dude, this guy won Project Gentleman. So I walked in the guy who won Project Greenlight.
That's awesome.
But I was nobody. I just happened to be there, and I happened to be making relationships and friends. So it's all about relationships. It's all about creating those good relationships that are positive for both party members. It's not about I hate the word networking, but it's a way of when you try to create a connection with someone, you need to provide them some value. So let's say you want something from somebody, it's like you're gonna go check out a hot girl at a bar. You're gonna walk up to her and like, I want to sleep with you. It's not gonna work. That's not working right off the bat. You've got to provide some sort of value. Whether that be your looks, whether that be your humor, whether that be something.
Alcohol.
Alcohol, whatever. Maybe this is a bad analogy. It's going down the wrong road. But trying to provide some sort of value. And I've heard multiple stories again and again. People just like, you can feed that energy. You can sense that energy when someone comes up with you like, I just want to take, and they want to suck from you.
Sure. As
opposed to someone like, hey, what can I do for you? And that always takes people off guard. Like, what? You want to give? Like, yeah, what can I do for you? What do I have in my bag of tricks that can help you as of right now to get into this party? Or is it because at that point, that was a very valuable thing. And I could get him into a party that he really wanted to get to, not freeze his ass off outside.
Sure.
Yeah.
That provided value. Hence, I opened up the door. Now we have a connection. Now we're having a conversation, and then now there's value, and that's the way you build value. And you guys know it because with a podcast. The podcast is a tremendous amount of value that you can provide and meet with people that you would never get a chance to otherwise. I've made insane relationships because of the podcast and because of Indie Film Hustle. And the second I started giving back to the film community wholeheartedly, doors opened for me that would have never opened otherwise. So I always try to give as much as I can. I like to give more than I get.
Well, that was 100% the reason we started the podcast was, and lucky us, we had 3 of our guests join our web series this summer and come out and shoot our web series with us. So, it worked in spades, right? I mean, you can't beat, and now they're like friends for life, because we worked with them and on all that stuff.
And they're friends too. The 3 of them now have developed a friendship, and they've been out. We've seen pictures of them on their social media. All of a sudden, hey, they're hanging out.
We're like,
somewhere
wait a
else.
minute, those are our vampire hunters. What the hell are they doing?
Oh, the best is when I can connect people. Like, I mean, I have a guest or a company that I'm working with, and somebody else comes to me like, oh, you know who you need to talk? You need to talk to the CEO of this company, or you need to reach out to this screenwriter. And if I can make that connection with no no ulterior motives, just truly help it, just want to make that connection. That's super valuable. And doing Indie Film Hustle, it feeds the soul for me, because I get, I've got letters and I get emails on a daily basis of people and filmmakers around the world who say that the podcast and the website provides hope for them. And you can't buy that. That's so valuable to me, that you provide hope. You gave me inspiration. Look, I just shot my movie because of you. That is, that's so amazing. And if I could do that with one, let alone many filmmakers and artists out there, man, it's a good day.
Of course.
It's a good day.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about you and your films and your projects, right? And This Is Meg. I mean, that was your big feature film that you put out this year. You just mentioned you're taking it to the American film market. I know you went to CineQuest with it and probably some other festivals.
And it's going to Hulu on Sunday.
Oh, awesome! Congratulations. Go watch This Is Meg on Hulu, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
But where did the concept for This Is Meg start? I know it started as a scriptment, so maybe you can give everybody a little background on what a scriptment is.
Did you know what a scriptment was before I said it?
No, not a clue. It was
I've had more people reach out to me about scriptments. They're like, "This is genius." I'm like, "I didn't create this, guys, and I didn't even create the name."
Yeah, but you're facilitating it, so
I do facilitate it. Yes, scriptment's been around for a long time. I mean, James Cameron is very famous for his scriptments. Where it's basically just a long outline or a story. So like his scriptment for Avatar was like 67 pages.
Wow.
Like, that's a scriptment. He basically
it's a hell of a synopsis, basically.
It's basically, it's a very big synopsis. So, but that's originally what scriptments were made for. But then the Duplass brothers and Joe Swanberg and Lynn Shelton and the Mumblecore crew started creating these kind of screenplays where you basically just do a huge outline of the movie. So with This Is Meg, I know I didn't want to wait. I was tired of waiting around for people to give me permission to make my movie. I had been waiting for 20 odd years. And I kept making this whole it's the feature film. It's this big monstrous mountain and it has to be Reservoir Dogs when it comes out and blow everybody away. And all filmmakers, we all think that. Like, if I got to make it, it's got to be mariachi. It's got to be Paranormal Activity. It's got to be these big movies, big indie movies. So that pressure, you crack. You just never will ever get to that point, especially when you're trying to make something to reach a goal as opposed to loving the process of doing the art.
Sure.
So when I reached out to Jill, I had just been dropped from another not dropped, but the other project just fell apart after going through it again. And I've been attached to so many projects over the years. I just called Jill up. I go, Jill, I want to make a movie. And Jill's the star of the movie and the writer. I go, Jill, I want to make a movie, and we're going to do it this way. And this is a story I want to tell. I want to tell your story as a comic and a actress who is not 21 anymore and who's been a little famous, but has fame, but she's not like a household name. And what it's like for you, because I've seen it. I've been front row as well for that. And she's like, okay, great. And I caught her at the right time, and I think a week later or 2 weeks later, she had a scriptment, and I read it and we worked on it a bit and kind of tweaked it here and there. And as she was writing it for her friends, which are all insanely talented actors. And after the scriptment was done, 2-3 days later, we locked up the cast, excuse me. And then we were shooting a couple weeks later. And then we whole thing was shot in 8 days over 6 weeks. We worked around people's schedule. And it was the most pleasurable creative experience of my life. It was just so pressureless. And I literally sat there during the process with Jill, and I said, are we making a feature film? Why is it so easy? We don't pass 6 hours. Like, a day never passed 6 hours, except for the long ayahuasca scene. That was, and we shot 3 scenes that day. That's the only reason why that was so long. But generally we never broke 6 to 8 hours. Never. I don't think we ever got to 8 hours.
Wow.
Actors got plenty of time to play. We all just sat there and we had a good time. And it was just wonderful because there was no pressure, because I didn't care. I just didn't care what happened at the end. I had no perceived outcome.
So we can take away from this that if you want to make a good feature film, you just have to not care. It's a joke.
I know. You have to not care about its outcome. to a certain extent. You got $1 million on the line, different conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your house on the line, different conversation. But if you're doing a micro budget film where it's basically an experiment, you shouldn't put pressure on it. And I didn't. I put no pressure on the film whatsoever. I put it out there. And in a lot of ways, I had the courage to do that because of Indie Film Hustle, because of the tribe. Because I just said to myself, well, if it does nothing, it's all good. I'll go back to the tribe. And it was like a family to me. It's a weird way. It's like, you know, at that time was a year ago now. I've met many more of them, and I've had contact with many more of the tribe members over the last year. But at the time, I just felt like, you know what, I'll just go back to do what I do. It's not that big of a deal. And the second I let go of that, everything blew wide open. Everything was just there automatically. It was this most effortless project I've ever been involved with, for Jill and for me. And Jill's been on, you know, $1 million projects, and she's just like, I can't believe this was this easy. Like, there was no problem. Like, this is the anti-filmmaking story, because every film story you guys know, I'm sure, is like, oh, the producer was a pain, the director didn't know what he was doing, the actor was a drama queen. Nothing. Everything is magical. I don't think I'll ever get that again. I hope I do, but I don't think I'll ever get it again. So it's been a wonderful experience. I mean, we sold it to Hulu. That's insane. You know, that we got it to Hulu. That was such a big deal for us. It's at AFM. Like, last year I was at AFM and looking around like, I don't know.
So let's talk about distribution then. So those are the places it's going, but did you have a plan? I mean, I know you're going with the I don't care mantra, but I find it hard to believe that the entrepreneur and the marketer in you had a plan for how you were going to get this to market, right? So
absolutely.
Of course.
No, absolutely. No question. I mean, I know this movie's not for everybody. It's a dramedy. You know, it is funny, has its funny moments, but it's not a straight out, Judd Apatow movie by any stretch. And it doesn't have any major stars in it. So I'm very realistic with what we have. You know, we have wonderful actors, which are, you know, faces that you all recognize, but we don't have any bankable stars. And they'll be the first ones to say it. So we knew that. We were just all having a good time. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to sell it, I'm going to try to sell it to my audience. So I'm going to show them the process of how I made it. So I started talking a lot about that. So I created a lot of content around that. So that brings in revenue, believe it or not, just by creating that content. And then I built a relationship out with the distributor. Said, you know, I'm going to self-distribute this. And then I'm going to show everybody how I self-distributed it. So I did a lot of content building up to the release of Meg. We released it on iTunes and Amazon. And then now it's on every platform you can imagine. And then I wanted to kind of just see what happens. And we sold a good amount, you know, the money, we made a decent amount of money. We're not rolling around in it by any stretch of the imagination, but we made a decent amount of money for such a small film, more than most.
Sure.
And that was the plan. And then I always knew for me, on a financial standpoint, there's more money in the making of Meg than there is in Meg. But oddly enough, you know, with the Hulu deal, we sold China, we sold South Africa, which is insane. Like, what? Like, what?
Somebody in South Africa is going to see your film, yeah.
Yeah, it's China. That was the first international sale, was China. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And we have a pending UK deal right now, and we're going to see what happens after AFM. So little by little, it's made some money. Again, we're not rich by any stretch of the imagination. I can't quit my day job anytime soon. But it was a good proof of concept. I'm like, we could do this. This is a feasible business model. Now, it only is a feasible business model when you have an audience like I do, and when I have actors that I had in the movie that I had with their audiences that help sell the movie. You know, so there's multiple areas that you need to have. But for self-distribution, you have to have an audience. If you don't, you're dead. There's no point in going to a distributor. There's no point in trying to get on iTunes or spending money to get an iTunes, get an aggregator like distributor or anybody else. It doesn't make sense. You have to have an audience. You have to understand marketing. You have to go through it. And, for me, Meg, my ancillary products are, parts of the stuff from, in my membership site, which is Master Circle, and other stuff like that shows the process of making it. And then, if you're making and I always use this example, and I'm going to make this movie one day, the Vegan Chef movie. You make a vegan chef movie, and it's a romantic comedy about vegan chefs, whatever, and it's a vegan chef, but he falls in love with a meat eater. I don't know. But you create this vegan chef movie. Why wouldn't you create a cookbook, videos that you can sell, courses on how to create vegan? I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you could build a whole empire based around that one little movie. As I've shown on a couple of episodes and a couple articles about other filmmakers who've done exactly that with Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, Food Matters, Yoga with Adrian, which is a YouTube show.
Yes.
They've built little empires up around that little bit of content. So you have to think about it as an entrepreneur, but you have to be smart about it, and the only reason Meg worked is because I wrote, but I made a movie within the resources that I had. I didn't try to make a big action movie. I've done that. I know how expensive that is. I didn't overextend myself on this one. Maybe I will in the next 2 or 3. But right now, this right now works. And it was like, okay, this is how you do it. And that's where I think a lot of filmmakers fall a little bit or trip up, is they become too ambitious too early. If I wanted to go out and make a big action movie, I feel comfortable that I could probably do something for a decent sized budget, but I also have 20 odd years behind me. I have a lot of resources at my disposal that I've built up. I have a lot of tools in my toolbox that I've built up, but when I see a 22-year-old trying to make, The Hobbit, it's probably not going to work out. So you have to kind of be thinking about that a little bit. Hope that was a long-winded question. Answer to a short
it's
question.
Great. It's exactly what it's awesome. The information's awesome.
Yeah.
I know our gear friend here, Joe, would probably wants to know like what you shot Meg on. You're a big Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve guy. So is that what you did? All of this is
I shot it on I had the camera. So it was a Blackmagic Cinema 2.5K, mastered in 1080p. By the way, everyone listening, you don't have to master in 4K, for God's sakes. Stop it. It's not there yet. But if you need it, great. But you don't have to go crazy for it. Anyway, I digress.
Did you edit on the Blackmagic?
Yeah,
suite?
That was the first thing I ever edited on on the DaVinci, because I was shooting raw. I was shooting raw in the 2.5K. I was like, you know what? I was a Final Cut 7 guy, so I was like, this is gonna be a bitch. But there's an edit tab here on DaVinci. Let me just start playing around with it, because I know at least it'll work. And I started playing around with it, and slowly but surely, I literally just was testing out editing the movie while I was editing the movie. Like, I just didn't even try anything else. I was just like, here's a scene. Let me try to cut it up. It's working. Let me keep cutting it up. And I just kept going. It was kind of madness in that way. And it was great because I was able to jump back and forth between color and editing, and it was great. But it was wonderful. I shot with 2 cameras, shot with Sigma 18 to 35 and some Rokies, Rokinon lenses for anyone not in the know. And that was it. It was really simple. And we recorded audio with a $150 recorder, XLR, recorder with a Rode mic. And then I had the guy. Oh God, I don't know where it is. Is it Mackie? Not Zoom, but the other one.
Tascam?
Is it Tascam? Thank you. That's what. See, that's how much I know about it. So
see, this is where my brain goes. I'm like, what gear are you using? What Rode mic did you use?
I used the NG2.
NTG2. That's what we just shot
Seymour
on this summer.
And 3. And 3 was 3 is the one that I kept for most of it. Yeah. Because 3 is awesome. It was a $250. That's like expensive mic, $250.
Yeah.
So and I literally got a boom for like $50, and I learned how to use it. And then I brought the guy who was holding the mic. He's not the sound guy. He's the guy holding the mic. And I go, here's the record button. Here's where you stop. Keep the mic as close as you can with it without getting out of it. All right. And then I taught him how to ride the levels a little bit. we were golden, and I was shocked. I was shocked that it came out sounding as good. You guys seen it? So did it sound all right?
No, the sound was
great.
Sound was actually great.
Yeah, not bad for a guy holding a boom.
Yeah, no, it's not bad at all. I mean, I didn't. There were. You know what it is when the sound is bad? You notice more.
Yeah.
So I there was nothing. There's nothing I could say about the sound because it all just sounded great.
Yeah.
It was
talking to Sal.
seamless.
Sal's the one I brought in when we first started getting into the movie business thing together. I brought him in
was
because
the
I
sound guy.
needed a sound guy, and I handed him a boom pole, and I said, "Here's the record button," and it was the same process. And now we're business partners.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those scenes with Jill by herself. Anytime you see Jill by herself, that's me and Jill.
Really.
That's it.
No crew.
Like that's it. No crew. It's just me
Lockdown
and her.
camera and you holding the boom.
No lockdown. No. I would actually have a tripod, not
With the
tripod.
boom.
C-stand holding the mic, or I would have the mic on the camera and I'd hold it on and be like, all right, let's do this. and that's the way. Like when we were in the car, any car shots, it's all me, and I literally would just get the mic and place it on the
cup
passenger
holder.
seat. On a passenger seat, and I go. And it was insane. He did. But when you're doing a movie of that kind of budget, you just want to try to strip away all of the noise. I'm like, what do I need to make a movie? I need a boom, a recorder, and a couple cameras. And that's it. And I'm like, okay. And I need a couple people to run some stuff some days, and everything else I'll do myself. Great. Let's just do it. Because a lot of times filmmakers get so caught up with the gear and so caught up with like, I need this move, I need that dolly move, I need this crane shot, I need this drone shot. That's great for certain kind of stories. But I wanted to create a story with Meg that I knew I could do myself.
But it's very intimate. It's a very intimate story, and you can tell the way the camera work and the lighting. It's a very intimate story, and the cast, just as you said, they all the improvisational aspect of it. You could see how comfortable everybody was on screen. It all comes across, like everything you're talking about, from the way you produced it and directed it. It all came across on screen.
It feels real.
Yeah,
like it
That's
feels
what I
real
want.
because the connections are real.
Right, and we wanted to do that. We wanted to create a raw, real movie that actually gave you some emotion. And by the way, when you say lighting, I never lit a movie before, and I was the DP on it.
Oh wow.
So I was like, I've maybe lit one thing in my life, 2 or 3 like things back in college, but I was like, and I know enough about it. I'm not complete, neophyte when it comes to lighting, but I've never lit a feature film before. So I was like, all right, what do I need? You need some China balls. Need this, need that, and I'll shoot it raw. I got latitude, and I'll fix it in post. And I fixed it in post. I made myself look. The only reason that movie looks so good is I spent a month in color correction. One shot had 14 power windows. If you know anything about color grading.
Wow.
It was the shot. It was the stuff outside with with Jenica, the pregnant.
Yeah.
Her boss.
Yeah.
All of that was there was no direct sunlight on her.
Oh my god.
So I was blowing out everywhere, but because I was able to use the latitude within the raw file, I saved like all those little hot spots on her arm, her nose. Right? I went in there and powered window all that out, and the information was there because I shot raw.
Wow. Very cool. There you go. There's your lesson for the day.
There's a tip for the day. Shoot raw and fix it later.
Always shoot raw. Always shoot raw, man. If you can look, when you shoot raw and you're even halfway decent in color grading, you just shoot it down. Just throw it down the middle, man. Just shoot it down the middle. Just throw a strike. Don't get fancy. Just throw a strike. Don't throw a curveball. Don't throw a knuckleball. Just throw a fucking strike. If you get it down the middle and you've got raw files, you should be able to play and fix things in post. Again, for certain kinds of movies. For bigger budget movies, this does not make sense. If you got $200,000, you better know what the fuck you're doing on set and take your time to light certain things. But if you're just kind of gunning it like we were and had a low budget, it's absolutely doable. And that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to make Meg in the first place, as well, is because I'm like, I wanted to prove to the tribe that it can be done. I wanted to go out there and go, guys, if I could do this, you guys can too. And I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm going to go out and do it. And I'm going to show you how I do it, warts and all. And there was things that along the way that, I would do differently as every project goes along,
Oh,
but
wow. We know that feeling.
Everything I've ever done in my life, I go, wow, I could have done that differently.
But I wanted to show the tribe that, it can be done.
The fun thing for us with the podcast, and I'm sure you appreciate the same, is just getting to hear people's stories and what they've gone through and what they do. And, for me, your podcast is not only just about the film industry. Like I said, just as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, other people I think would find value in your show if they listen to it in general. So,
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do actually have a handful of people that are non-filmmakers who listen to the show, and they're like, we just love listening to the process and love listening to these stories. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Like the one the podcast we just released this week, Julian, the one who did I don't know if you heard the last episode.
No, I did not get to it. I was busy watching Mrs. Meg.
Okay, no problem. No, there was he's an Australian director who made a movie in Malta, in the islands of Malta. And he was making it at the exact same time I was making Meg. So he was like, dude, I felt like, and he actually flew out to LA and we had a coffee and the whole ball of wax.
Nice.
And he was like, dude, I mean, I felt like I had a brother in arms, because here we have no film industry. And I would listen to your podcast and like, I hear you going through your stuff with Meg and I'm going through it with this. And he shot this movie by himself too. He shot with the GH4. It was a love story and it looks amazing. It's called Love to Paradise. And he got to number 3 of iTunes.
Wow. Oh, I saw the title for that.
That one. And it's people have been hitting me back like, dude, we love that story, because it's just another success story. I got a couple coming up. Blow you guys. I can't wait to share it, because I get hit by a lot of filmmakers wanting to be on the show now.
Sure.
And anyone who's trying to get on the show, before I was a little bit more lenient and just opened up, but now I got to be a lot more strict, because I need to provide value. So if it's just a filmmaker coming on the show to promote their movie, I'm like, I can't do that, guys.
Of course. Yeah.
But if it's a story that I can provide value to my audience, like this one, like how did you get to the top 3? How did you go out with one cast by yourself? And it's it's all over an island. It looks insane.
Wow.
And that provides value, as opposed to like, hey, I just made a new movie. I'm like, I made it for $5,000. I'm like, there's a line of filmmakers that I have literally that made for $5,000. What is special? What did you do different?
Yep.
And again, I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I'm like, I just got to be true to my audience and not waste your guys' time with someone just going out there like, hey, I'm going to promote my movie. I'm like, no, I don't care about promoting your movie.
But that's why people listen to you, and why they keep continuing listening to, because you are true to the audience, because you say, you know what, I have to deliver something that's educational, something that's telling people what's really going on, as opposed to fluff.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I never want to be an interview guy. Like, just like, oh, I get hit up by publicists daily.
Sure.
With press releases daily. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Occasionally, I have a relationship with some publicists that they actually connect me with really great guests, because now they know. They're like, they won't even come near me. They won't even pitch anything to me unless there's an angle to it. Like that one guy, Galen, who did that movie, the $25,000 movie or $250,000 movie.
Blood, Sand, and Gold?
Yeah, Gold. Yeah, that guy. Gold, Sand, and Gold.
Love that.
Was that an amazing podcast?
I know.
Because that guy was crazy. He went out and spent like $250,000 and made it look like a $25 million movie.
This is the one I was telling you, who was doing the pyrotechnics and the explosions in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, he told me about this. I didn't hear this one.
He bought a used car and he blew it up in the desert. I'm like, you're psychopath, dude. Like, how the hell are you doing this? And he's like, oh yeah, we just land wherever I'm like, he was like in Saudi Arabia, or I don't know where the fuck he went, but he'd go there and he's like, I'm like, so you had like 5 people on your crew. What happened when you showed up? He's like, yeah, we would just land and then we'd just look for an acting class somewhere, or we just call some people and we just start shooting. I'm like, you're out of your mind. I love it. But that was a perfect pitch. Like, that publicist called me.
Yep.
And he's like, hey, I got this movie. And I looked at the trailer. I'm like, this is just another international action movie. I'm not really interested. And he's like, I thought you'd say that. This is the story. I'm like, oh my God, I have to have him on the show. Because, not a lot of us have $250,000 to make a movie.
Exactly.
But the concepts of what he did translate to a $5,000 movie without question.
Yeah.
So it was value to the audience. So, yeah. We went off on a tangent on how
that's cool. That's
interesting.
No, that was perfect. That was great. And I think it's a good way to, just say thank you, Alex, for joining us today. And thank you for, being who you are and giving the indie film hustle to all of us filmmakers and giving us all hope and educating all of us out there.
I'm humbled by that, man, and I thank you for having me on your show. It's been great, and again, I really just want to try to help filmmakers out as much as I can, and give them a little bit of a beacon of light, because it's rough out there, man. It's tough out there, and it's getting tougher because more of these guys are coming up, and it's it's not like when I started out. It's not like when Martin Scorsese started out or Steven Spielberg started out. Competition's fierce. So I in my small way, I hope I'm helping some people.
You definitely are.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alex. Tell everybody, go to indiefilmhustle.com. Is there any thing you have coming out that you want to promote to our fine folks?
I've got right now at indiefilmhustle.com. You'll see everything there. The podcast, the YouTube show. I have a new YouTube show called The Director Series. Have you guys been watching that?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Thanks for letting us know.
Thank you.
It's a new series that I'm releasing called The Director Series, where amazing filmmaker by the name of Cameron, I'm going to massacre his last name, Briel. He created a series on directors like David Fincher, Chris Nolan, P.T. Anderson, Stanley Kubrick, and the Coen brothers. So far, that's what he has so far, and they are probably about 3-hour video essays.
Wow. Broken
up in episodes, and it's like we just released the final Fincher one this week. Next week we're releasing the Nolan, which is amazing, and they go into every commercial he's ever directed, every music video, and how his style has grown over the course of his career. And they do that through all of these directors like P.T. The Nolan one is insane. Kubrick, which is how I found him in the first place. Like everything Kubrick ever did and why he did it and how he did it, and they're just epic. Each episode's like 30 minutes. Some are like an hour and 30 minutes. It's insane. So that's a new show that's on our YouTube show. Again, you'll find all that on Indie Film Hustle, but if you go to YouTube, you can find that. And we've got a ton of new courses coming out as well through Indie Film Hustle. Like I told you guys before the show, Filmmaker in a Box, which just released, which is an 18-hour course on the making of a $100,000 independent film. So if you've never gone through the entire experience of making a feature film, this is the course that you want to watch and sit there and just literally you're a fly on the wall through the entire process, and they teach you along the way their experiences, the good and the bad. And it's I'm very proud to be releasing that. So that's going to be up on Indie Film Hustle as well.
Awesome. We're going to look for all that stuff. We're going to watch it all and see and share it with our folks. So
thank you guys for having me on the show, and of course keep that hustle going.
You got it, man.